Hello, good evening, and welcome to our quite interesting interview with All Babies Are Rapists. Say hello, Alex.
Hello. And yes, one thing, I do want everyone to know I have really made the effort, all dressed up, glad rags on, seriously, all dolled up, made the effort, even wearing Hugo Boss for the occasion for you guys, and I look and smell fucking amazing for this interview. Cheers.
Brilliant. So, Alex is here to shamelessly haul his new book, which is available through Lulu and published by Kitty Wake. And there'll be some links down below, of course. So, let's get started with the viewer questions. So, why didn't you burn the tape?
I specifically said no questions about Watergate.
Okay, so the next thing I think we need to know is, what is the meaning of your username?
The meaning of my... Oh, God. Right, I didn't expect that question to come up quite so soon. Oh, dear. Right, the meaning of it. It's... I suppose, when I first thought it, it was an accident. I'd literally... I don't... people can misspeak, I can misthink. And then I realised that I'd thought that I think there must have been two topics on YouTube, and I fused them in my head. And then I realised that there were satirical levels on which that worked in relation to satirise the whole all babies are atheist argument, to satirise the kinds of things that certain rad femmes say. And to be honest with you, I came back to YouTube a lot earlier than I intended to, perhaps not necessarily feeling psychologically ready to. And I had actually discussed this has actually come up in counselling, that because I decided not to use that name, even though the joke works satirically. And my counsellor knew this, and also knows that I tend to say the R word, that I treat the word rape with that level of reverence, and that's actually a bad thing. And it was actually recommended that I then use that name so as to not give it much as you might, for example, treat somebody as a kind of Voldemort, and that's been happening as well. So the important thing was you're kind of confronting something. So it's not meant to be offensive, and it's not meant to mock any victims. It's actually meant in a way to show no fear and to mock the act. Oh, another thing that was suggested, actually, by my counsellor was that you're sort of saying the opposite. You're sort of saying all rapists are babies, which, if you think about it, it's selfish. It's I want, and so it's actually quite an assertive thing to do, and it would be a bad idea to change your life and not use that joke. Okay?
Okay, yeah, that's a lot deeper than I was expecting. A lot of things are with you. I just thought that it was just the all babies are rapists thing, just going, right, wait, all babies are atheists thing, which Bionic Dance was going on about, and the elevator gate thing. I thought it was just as simple as just Bush, there you go. But
yeah.
Yeah, so it goes quite a bit deeper than I was expecting. So, if you would, could you briefly sum up or describe your book?
Right, it's one of those books that's very, very, very difficult to describe without spoilers. It's sort of it's been, people have even said that in relation to kind of reviewing it, or to describe it. It's a bit Pratchett-esque. It's a bit Douglas Adams-ish. Or possibly Neil Gaiman. It's a sort of fantasy, horror, comedy, satire. I was kind of trying to write an everything book, but essentially it came a sort of outpouring of my thinking about everything. A lot of it comes from dreams. The kind of central, pivotal point of the story I only recently remembered, because until quite recently I could literally be in a club and be given pills and knock it back with whatever I was drinking and not even ask what it was. I think this was mescaline. And it's literally unfolded. I literally wrote it in my head as it appears in almost like 90% as it appears in the book. That's more of an anecdote than a description. It's my take on the end times. It's my take on The Omen, in a sense. The Omen films, for me, deteriorated. The second Omen film should have shown Damien, if he's equal and equivalent, which I think is what they're getting at in the Omen films, then he should face trials, he should face temptations, he should face his own Gethsemane story. And that was something I was anxious to put in, just to right the wrong, that they don't do that in anything else I know of about this type of character that I've just revealed, obviously. But obviously, I mean, it's using the devil, or my characterization, my interpretation of some kind of devil or antichrist character for the purposes of satire. One Christian YouTuber who just recently bought the ebook had assumed it was an anti-theist piece of fiction. It's not really meant to be anti-theist. It's meant to be a satire on people, and it mentions various things, religion and ideology. Actually, some of it's influenced by some of you James's videos about. If you're not subscribed to you, James, please do. He a while back he made a lot of videos on the subject of ideology, which are very interesting. And there's actually a couple of lines and a couple of moments that are influenced by that, and bits of it are me ranting. Some people said that it's very crazy, it's very surreal. It kind of is. Pardon me. Some of it, though, in a way, is kind of grounded. Some of it I've almost used a Doctor Who kind of science fiction shorthand, almost to kind of justify things that otherwise are, you would just call magic, just say supernatural, which I find quite interesting, because I think my kind of OCD mind needs that if something's total fantasy, I don't accept it, but something like Doctor Who, it's sort of pretending to have real science in it, and you can buy a book that explains the science of Doctor Who and says, there is in theoretical physics something could be bigger on the inside, and you're kind of, even if the terminology used is actually bullshit, like I've got things like he's made of antimatter, his atoms vibrate at light speed. This could all be complete bullshit, but it might make no sense. But I'm science fictionizing religion in a way to get across the story. So yeah,
that definitely sounds like the sort of book I'd enjoy reading, and of course I'll be buying it later in the book in person, hopefully.
Yep.
Yeah, and of course Pratchett, Adams, and who's the other one you mentioned? Gaiman. Yeah, three of my favourite authors. So.
Oh, great, excellent.
Yeah, so I mean, as soon as you said that, instantly sold on the idea.
Right.
Okay. Where have I got to in the questions? Well, the next question was, when did you first get your idea for the story? Which you've, I think you sort of briefly mentioned that then, but perhaps you could elaborate on that.
I think there was no one flash of inspiration. It comes from, it's trying to take all my recurring thoughts and all my recurring dreams, over the course of, say, a year. Hence, you get a lot of world affairs, you get the end of days idea, because there was a lot of that in the past couple of years. How many apocalypses have there been now? Actually, even though not religious, of course, perhaps perhaps identify more as an agnostic than an atheist, but certainly not someone you would call a Christian, but at the same time still thinking about those themes, those ideas, which I think, if we didn't think they were interesting, we wouldn't be here, you know. And actually YouTube, I think, influenced. Actually, even parts of the book actually do come from, some people may even recognise here or there a hint of, oh, hang on, wasn't that in a video of his? Or, that reminds me of something that came up in the big debate. Even bits of arguments, like saying to somebody, if someone says, when you feel the Holy Spirit, that's the proof of God. And you say, well, you're a Christian, but you know, what if somebody else said they felt something very similar, but they said Krishna, and the Christian said, oh, if you call the Holy Spirit Krishna, he'll correct you. And I thought that was funny enough to be worthy of inclusion.
Yeah.
And as I say, the nightclub thing, because actually one of the questions that you, James, asked was, what drugs were you on? And I had to think for a bit. And yes, there was an influence of literally, I think, maybe the determining moment, because the book's actually almost written from the middle outwards. So the nightclub moments I've described of the gambit of the character, where I was sort of it unfolded almost like a mathematical equation of how would this character actually go about winning. And it just suddenly made sense, and the whole speech, the whole moment just existed. I've changed the location in my mind for a number of reasons. The opening chapter I wrote on the Hammersmith and City line in between Liverpool Street and Liverpool Street and Aldgate East, on a day when I was in a hurry. Hence, I got the tube, but actually the train stopped for half an hour, and I could have walked that one stop in 5 to 10 minutes. One of those days. Hence, the contemplation of the horrors of the Hammersmith and City line. That's where you first meet the two main characters. The prologue to the book, which I think fits perfectly, and then goes on to influence things towards the end of the book. I wrote to be a comedy YouTube video, and then a sort of spoof of Genesis. And then I thought, oh, hang on. This belongs at the beginning of the book, which another thing was that it was originally called The Descent of Man because of the double meaning. But when I thought of, I remembered that a year earlier had written a piece of fan fiction called, a Doctor Who fan fiction called How to Lose Friends and Annihilate People. And I'm a big fan of How to Lose Friends and Alienate People, and I wanted to do a crib, and actually How to Lose Friends and Annihilate People works just as well for this book. And I think it's a better title than The Descent of Man, where you wouldn't even understand the joke of the double meaning until you'd read it. So it's kind of, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, I completely drifted off topic there, but anyway.
That's a pretty full answer there.
Yep.
So what was your involvement in Watergate?
I made the tea.
You made the tea. Okay. Nice simple answer. Did the name really seem like a good idea at the time? I presume that's the book. I'm not sure if that's the book or the username that question's referring to.
Well, if it was the book, well, obviously I changed it. But people in the comments section can say whether they thought that the Descent of Man's a better title. But I went with, I just think it's funnier. The username, as I say, I wasn't going to use it, and I was literally kind of like officially advised that I should, and I'm stuck with it now anyway.
Okay, next question. Do you think everybody should subscribe to Watcher Azazel?
Yes.
I wonder who asked that question.
Oh my. Yeah, everybody on Earth should immediately subscribe to Watcher Azazel. So tomorrow morning he'll wake up and he'll have 7 billion subscribers. So, go ahead.
Okay. So, how long did the book take to write?
The actual act of writing, I'd say a year, but that includes a break of a few months, where I kind of lost enthusiasm, or I lost concentration, or something like that.
Yeah.
But if you include the actual thought processes, there's probably another year before that, where literally it might be the OCD, because things drive me mad. Thoughts drive me mad. Things that you can think about drive me mad. My recurring dreams drive me mad. And sometimes you can deal with it by writing. So in a way, the book was almost therapy. So it's interesting how it has a diagnosis. And also interesting that a book written by somebody with such severe OCD should come across as disorganized schizophrenia, when you would think they would be opposite.
You would think it would be the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Maybe your book was an outlet for the disorganized side of you, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm making up bullshit now.
Could be true. Yeah.
How did you come up with that wonderful description of how the London Underground works in your book?
Oh, damn! I've answered that one. Yeah, I was literally on the Hammersmith and City. This actually, people, if you go to Lulu, you can read the first 11 pages as a free sample. And yes, that was perhaps one of the best written bits. And yes, if you know the London Underground, you know the thought processes, you know the experience. As I said, the whole Aldgate East thing of sort of, why did I get on the train? Of course it was going to stop in the tunnel for half an hour when you were in a hurry and you could just have walked it in 5 minutes. And I tie it in with atheism, because of the genuine belief that There is no way that the underground has managers. That's what I was actually thinking. I literally thought, A, they don't have managers, and B, if they do, they need to send one down among us for ritualistic sacrifice.
I've got quite a funny train story. Time before last, I went to Wales.
Yeah.
The first thing I saw when I got out off of the train in Cardiff was a shirtless guy curled up, just screaming. Nothing wrong with him. He was just shirtless and on the floor, just screaming. And I've spoken to you. I've told Yuki about that, and Yuki's like, "Oh yeah, Screaming Terry." He's some sort of local celebrity around there or something.
Right.
Okay, so next question. What sorts of things make your OCD better or worse?
Oh God, that's better or worse? Right. Oh, that's what you mean. Because I was on. Normally they give you antidepressants because most antidepressants are to do with neurotransmitters, but I tend to find that the actual side effects of antidepressants make me worse or in different ways, you know. And there was one that worked, except it fucked your heart up, and now you have to go on an ECG, which was quite annoying actually. It was venlafaxine, worked in every way, but I knew I was having palpitations. I complained, but it was completely ignored, very nastily, very rudely, just dismissed. They wanted me to go on a double dose of something that was affecting my heart adversely, and I was like, no, they nearly made me go on this. And since then, you have to have an ECG to be given it. So I was right all along. In fact, the fact that they put me on a double dose, it's probably too long ago now, but you could sue over something like that. That's but generally, I try to customize the idea of cognitive behavioral therapy, which has a variety of methods to it, because essentially it's training the brain to think differently, and you try and block, and you try and divert. I tend to cut. There's even actually something from Doctor Who. I don't know if you know the Dalek one with the eggs. Of trying.
No, I haven't seen that.
She's trying not to think exterminate, as the Daleks are trying to get into the night. So the bad thoughts, or the unwanted thoughts, or the useless thoughts are Daleks. And if you're still saying eggs, I actually once jumped back and shouted eggs, because sometimes these methods, these trip switches, I call them, come out in that way. So you almost make yourself have Tourette's. And I jumped back and went, eggs, to stop the thoughts coming. Luckily, I was in a supermarket. So I just acted as if I'd forgotten eggs, went to the dairy aisle to try to hide the fact that I'm insane. Yes. Sometimes I like to imagine that the thoughts are kind of assailants, and you are being assertive, and you know self-defense, and it's like sort of a hand up to their face, no, and you can then actually manage to blinker yourself and actually concentrate on the thoughts that you should be having. Because essentially OCD, although people think of it as, oh, I'm so OCD, and they think of the very superficial kind of tip of the iceberg, washing your hands a lot, or everything has to be in alphabetical order. What's happening in your brain is that not all the off switches work. Something's very well explained in a film called Dirty Filthy Love, which I may ask you to link. It's a very good. Most people who see that film, they didn't understand OCD before, they do afterwards.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out. I've heard very good things about CBT.
Yes.
Yeah, and yeah, I've got a friend who's got some, who's been through quite a lot of psychological trouble. And I think that has helped him quite a bit. And some of the psychiatric drugs he's been on have just fucked him up and made him worse various times. And yeah, similar sort of experience. The people who prescribe them don't seem to listen when you're like, no, this really isn't fucking working. You know, try and get me something else.
Yeah. Yeah, the tendency, I mean, a psychiatrist basically throws Prozac at you. You know, it's you need something more than a drug dispenser. Yeah,
I know some antidepressants. The list of side effects on them are quite hilarious.
Well, quite fun.
Yeah, I try and look at it positively.
Yeah, I know.
Side effect for antidepressant. Suicide. What?
Yeah, exactly. There are antidepressants which can make you suicidal and with which you can commit suicide. They've given you the inclination and the weapon. You know, here's a loaded gun and a reason to shoot yourself with it, all in one.
Yeah, although I suppose, you know, if in a small number of people it does make them more suicidal, having, I don't know, it could be a double-edged sword, you know, having the side effect there may work as a placebo to implement that, or it might work as a warning, like, you know, if this isn't working for you, tell someone immediately, because it's only going to get worse, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the brain is so complicated, and with many sort of neurological disorders, they have positives and negatives, and if you have a drug which works on some of the negatives, then it'll of course get rid of some of the positive aspects of it as well.
Yeah, well, I think because I'm quite neurotic and paranoid, I do read the side effects, and then I've sometimes literally just not been able to take them because, as I say, once I get an idea in my head, it's there. So it's sort of like, shit. I mean, I think it's very common among people with OCD to be scared of medication, which is a whole new problem in a sense. Although it can be wise, you know, this will make you kill yourself. Okay, I'm not taking that.
Yeah. Okay. So, next question: what sort of things make OCD better or worse?
Oh, right.
We've done that.
I suppose I could bang on about OCD altogether, but technically that's a duplicate question, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was intentional. Okay, so how debilitating can OCD be for some people?
Unbelievably, it's one of those problems where you want people not to treat it as whereas schizophrenics have the problem of people fearing even the word schizophrenia. We have the problem of people just saying idiomatically, oh, I'm sorry, OCD that way, when it can be a very Dirty Filthy Love shows this. I mean, a man steps in dog shit. When he gets home, he's actually found washing his feet in neat bleach. I've not had a problem as bad as that, and not all OCD is a stereotype that it's all about cleanliness. Even Glee, which as a TV show is better than House when it comes to this, because they do treat it as an illness and they do treat it seriously. The Emma character has OCD. It's always has to put on gloves to eat food, always cleaning. I have had things like that as a teenager. I had conflicting paranoias because I had or compulsions because I washed obsessively, but I had to rinse obsessively because of my fear of any kind of chemical. And you can't not use soap or shower gel, you can't not use shampoo, but I would have to rinse so ridiculously thoroughly. I don't know how long most people shower for, but my minimum would have been something like half an hour. And people not understanding that you're not just being a selfish teenager, it takes you that long to wash and rinse that much. You couldn't, it has to be done in a particular ritualistic way. Like, however, the thing that affects has affected my life worse is getting up and having to check that you've not left anything behind. Which, like so many things, is a rational thing to do, like checking you turn the gas off, but only once. I'm always checking the thermostat or something. My mate Kate, who has terrible OCD, what she does, she has to close the shop, and when she gets back to home via the tube, she used to go, did I lock the shop? I'd have to go all the way back again. Her method, actually, she takes a photo of the door of the shop completely locked, shutters down, padlocked, As she's about to get onto the tube, she texts the photo to herself, so she gets it when she gets home, so she doesn't spend an hour travelling back to the shop to check again. I used to have a ritual of getting up from the bench on the train station, looking back to check, not left anything behind on or around the bench, and it would be left shoulder, right shoulder, step forward.
Yeah.
You think you haven't done it right, you keep doing it. And I would say where it's debilitating is where you don't get the train. Where you don't get to work, don't get to wherever you're going, miss your connecting train, because that's actually fucking your life up, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Will there ever be a time when schizophrenic authors dominate the literary landscape instead of them fucking vampires, zombies, Also, will you pledge your loyalty to the seven-headed golden giraffe?
Right. I think I'll have to say a very emphatic and enthusiastic yes to both of those questions.
Excellent. Who is your favourite Doctor?
Ooh, that's tricky. I have to treat classic series and new series as separate entities. I hope that's okay.
Sure.
Classic series, the obvious choice, of course, would be Tom Baker. I'm very, very keen on William Hartnell and the very, very early Doctor Who's. But obviously grew up, of course, with Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy, so I have a lot of affection for them. But I'd say, trying to be as objective as possible, and given that Tom Baker had 7 years, so you've got a lot of good stories to choose from there. I would say Tom Baker. New series. I suppose, I don't know, I feel guilty saying it, and maybe it's just because he's new, or maybe it's because he's close to my age and in my circle. Me and Matt Smith actually met in a pub once. He wasn't Doctor Who at that point.
Yeah.
And he's in similar kinds of circles, because I know a lot of young actors, and so, or at least I'm acquainted with those sorts of circles, and he's very, very nice in real life. But I suppose that's neither here nor there. But he's, as the Doctor, I really do enjoy this Moffat era of Doctor Who with Matt Smith, where you're always on your toes, you're always wondering what's going to happen, and I think he does play the part extremely well. But I did absolutely love David Tennant during his era, but I'll go with Matt Smith.
Okay, good answers. And which Doctor has embarrassed themselves the most afterwards?
Oh, right. Has embarrassed themselves the most afterwards? Well, that's tricky. I suppose it couldn't be Hartnell, because he didn't really do much after Doctor Who. I mean, he left because he was ill. Troughton, I think, had a pretty good career after. Pertwee never stopped working. Tom Baker, Tom Baker, well, he's naked in Life and Loves of a She-Devil, if that counts. Is that where, presumably he wasn't embarrassed by that, or he wouldn't have done it. I don't know. I'd say the amount of weight that Colin Baker gained could be described as embarrassing. Other than that, I don't know. I would say, having met some of these actors, I think perhaps I've met all of the living. No, actually, I haven't met Tom Baker. Oddly, the obvious one. I'd say of any Doctor Who, any Doctor actor I've met, Peter Davison was the one that I found to be not terribly friendly, to be a bit arrogant, a bit dismissive, in contrast with his characterization of the Doctor. But any other Doctor Who actors I've ever met have been terribly nice. But I found that with Red Dwarf as well, because they're all great except for Chris Barry, who played Rimmer, who isn't really any nicer than Rimmer.
Is there an episode that you consider to be hateful or bad from the current or past Doctor Who series?
Hateful or bad? Oh, it's difficult to say. Interesting use of the term hateful. There are, of course, bad Doctor Who episodes. I think that some Doctor Who I see as complete gold. Some Doctor Who, obviously, there are some very polarizing episodes, and there are some episodes, and just as there are some episodes that everybody hates. Generally, I suppose, for me, a bad episode of Doctor Who is one that I just don't bother with. If I don't watch that episode several times, then it must have been pretty uninspiring. And I showed a friend of mine an episode called Love and Monsters, which for some reason I like. Everyone hates it, and it's a very strange episode. And my friend found it unbelievably bad. Why am I being shown this? And there's something about it that I kind of like. I could sort of see, if people say hateful, I can kind of see what they mean. But it's kind of, in terms of like this sort of, I don't know what I think of as the. There's never really an episode that I can think of where I go, that was complete and total utter shit. But there are definitely episodes that are a bit meh. They're a bit nothing. but then it kind of, but when you have gems like Blink, Family of Blood, Silence in the Library, you know, it kind of it makes up for it. There's always enough that's extremely good and stays with you and is inspiring to make up for the fact that bad means forgettable. Well, you forget them because they're forgettable, so it kind of doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. And yeah, all those questions. I haven't watched that much Doctor Who, so.
Well,
yeah.
Did you ever know the old series, or you just?
I did watch some of the old series. I don't remember it that well. I was never a huge fan, but I'm not one to follow the crowds, and since everyone else absolutely loves it, I've just never really got into it.
Yeah, well,
if I was American, I'd probably really like it because it's, it's.
Not am British.
Exactly.
I'd say
like Americans think Stella's posh.
Wow.
I know. Who was it? I can't remember which YouTuber it was. Someone in the atheist community. They did a video and they're drinking a Stella and they thought it was posh. I just had to say in the comment section, do you know what they call Stella in the UK?
It's something to do with wife beating, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so next question. Would you say you like comics, and if so, which ones?
Comics. I've never been into, oddly enough, I've never been into the science fiction or superhero kind of comic. You would think that I would be. Apart from the actual Doctor Who comic strip in Doctor Who magazine, and I did read the Dalek ones, I suppose, because they were in the annuals that I used to collect. But oddly enough, growing up with dyslexia, with the number of things I have, I had, of course, difficulty reading. And I was very enthusiastic for a comic called The Beano, which is I think we only have in the UK.
Yeah, I used to read it when I was very young as well.
Yeah, because it's a comic book, it's easier because you don't feel that words are being thrown at you. So I would actually seriously say, although I had learning support and things like that, that through my mastery I can now read a whole copy of The Beano by myself. I think The Beano helped me with dyslexia and helped me to learn to read, as odd as that sounds.
Awesome. Let's see. Is there any YouTuber you would shag, male or female?
That question should be rephrased as which ones wouldn't I shag? I'd say 90% of people on YouTube, male and female, I'd give it a go.
Really?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Why not? Yeah, you can tell. I don't know who it was who asked that question, but because they used the word shag, it's got to be someone English.
So they're nearby then, right?
Huh?
So they're someone I could travel to then. Excellent. They can come to.
Yeah. Yes. They now know that they have a 90% chance that you say yes.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So, what's the difference between Southerners and human beings? I think they meant Northerners there.
Yes, of course they must have meant Northerners there.
They must have. They're Northern. Of course they're going to make a mistake like that.
Of course, too many bricks will do that to their brain. Yes. I think I've answered that now. I think I've established that. Yeah.
What's the best video game you've played?
Oh god, I very, very rarely play video games. As a kid, like every other kid of my generation, I was obsessed with Super Mario Brothers. I had the original, I had the NES, and then I had the SNES, and I never progressed beyond that video game-wise. So almost, if it isn't Super Mario Brothers, or well, classic Super Mario Brothers, which would look very crappy to kids now. If it isn't that, I don't know. I've never played too.
Yeah.
So I've never, Yeah.
I was brought up on Sonic rather than Mario. I was given a Master System, and then of course I got a Mega Drive on from there.
Right.
I played I've played SNES a little bit, and from playing a lot of those games recently on emulators, a lot of the games which I missed out on, I really wish that I had SNES now instead.
Yeah, it's a shame that I suppose very few kids could afford both. I got the Nintendo for Christmas, of course, and 2 games came with it, and there was always that divide. Everybody in the playground, they've either got the Nintendo or they've got the Mega Drive.
Yeah.
When I went to a friend's house and tried playing Sonic, I was so used to how Nintendo is, and I'm a creature of habit, that I couldn't play it because once I learn things and I have routines and I know how this works, and so you're treating a Sega like it's a Nintendo, and it doesn't. It looks very different as well. The Sega probably was better in many ways.
The Sega was better in one way. When they were advertising, I've seen these adverts on YouTube recently. I don't remember them from being a kid, so maybe it was only in America. But they, Sega had the slogan in the advert, Sega does what Nintendo don't. And they went on about blitz processing. And it turns out blitz processing is complete bollocks.
Right.
It was basically what they did was like a top trumps thing. The Sega, the graphics card on the SNES was superior in every way. It could handle better sounds. It was better in all sorts of different ways. But the Sega's processor was a bit faster than the SNES. So they just picked the one thing it beat them in, and then they're just like, ha.
Yeah, that's what they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was quite an advancement because I think the first computer games that I can remember were things like my brother had a Spectrum, and you put a cassette tape in and it took half an hour to load and it made an awful noise. And so you played these very blocky kind of pip pip sorts of things, and the Commodore as well was one. And then it seemed to me like a revolution that something like Super Mario Bros. Sonic the Hedgehog suddenly arrived. Whereas nowadays, I suppose you'd look back at things from the 80s and 90s and think that they're crap. But as I say, I didn't develop beyond that. I just never...
Yeah, it was certainly a huge leap from like the Spectrum and the Commodore and stuff.
Yeah.
Remember, I bought an old Amstrad machine, which is very similar to the Spectrum. You put the cassette in it takes 20 minutes for it to load.
Right.
Some of the tapes fail 3 out of 4 times, so it can take you an hour to play a game. But yeah, I was quite pleased with that purchase. I paid $7.50 for the computer, the screen, and a whole bin bag full of games.
Yeah. Wow. Those were the days. I think the thing I mainly remember actually was other than the fact that actually Nintendo I associate with the first learning that I had OCD, because I did a lot of things around that age, 7 or 8, 9. I used to have to spin in a complete circle, for example. So obviously I got teased and bullied quite a lot as the kid that literally spins in a circle, which is almost a metaphor for how a lot of OCD works. So of course you're playing Nintendo, of course you have to tap it 5 times and get that perfectly right before you can begin the game. And then if something fucks up or distracts you, reset completely, because once you got to a certain level you don't have to repeat exactly the same thing. But I also remember the Christmas I got the Nintendo, the NES, completely fucked up my education for that year, because you were so addicted, it was all you could think about. I want to get home and play. That was all you could think about all day. Yeah.
I think that's quite normal for a lot of people who play games.
Yeah. I suppose that's why they become game developers, because it's all they can think about.
Yeah. One thing which was good with the Spectrum and the Commodore and those kind of things is there was a lot... It was quite easy you could develop games for them yourself far easier than you could with the later consoles.
Right.
A lot of bedroom developers and stuff. I had one game on the Amstrad which is just called How to Be a Complete and Utter Bastard.
Excellent. I'd buy for the name, yeah.
It was just weird, like you're in a supermarket and you just like piss on the shelves or something for just no reason at all. It was, it was just the sort of thing which obviously wasn't published through a reputable publisher. Someone had just made it in their bedroom.
Excellent. Okay, that game is already my favourite, and I haven't even played it yet.
Okay.
There you go.
It's shit, but yeah.
Okay. Actually, can I ask? Actually, I just thought it occurred to me. No, this is something really embarrassing. You know that game? It's sometimes called Wall. It's sometimes called Breakout. You've got the paddle that goes beep beep, and you hit the balls to break the bricks. I've got that on my phone. That's my favourite game, and actually, I loved it as a kid. It's very basic. You're just hitting a brick with balls. I love it.
I actually made a Breakout clone yesterday.
Wow. Send it to me.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, sure. I'll send it to you later. And you'll see it in a video today, or probably tomorrow or the day after now. Because I'll be able to do this upload.
Cool.
But yeah, I've made it intentionally shit for a reason.
Fantastic.
And if you watch the video. Okay, so what label best summarises your worldview?
What label best summarises my worldview? Oh, fucking hell. I would say I don't do labels, but it'll just sound like a cop-out, won't it? I wish...
I'm an A-labelist.
Oh, yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah, I'll steal that, thank you. Okay, you answered for me.
I was being pretty sarcastic, but yeah, fair enough.
I'll go with that. That'll be my next channel name, I think.
Oh, sorry, I'm just dying a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll be...
Everyone seems to have some kind of cough or cold at the moment.
Yeah. I smoke like 1 billion cigarettes a day.
So I'm not much better, actually. I bought an e-cig and broke it on the first day.
Ouch. Was it a reusable one?
Yeah, but I think, no, it was when it was charging in the USB port, I knocked it. And I think, though, it shouldn't break that easily, because the problem was it won't charge now. And even because the light should come on. But I think it's soon enough to take it back, because it shouldn't break that easily.
I've actually got one charging in my computer right now, as it happens, as well.
Aha! Well,
too many coincidences today.
It is. It's very, very freaky.
It sure is. Okay, so next question. Is it animal, vegetable, or mineral?
Right. Is that the whole question?
Yes.
Right. Right. Is it animal, vegetable, or mineral? Okay. I'll pick something. Okay, I've got a ketchup bottle. I'll say that's kind of that's vegetable and mineral. So there you go. A ketchup bottle is both. Yeah.
And is fruit considered a vegetable even when it's metaphorical?
Ah, right. Is fruit considered a vegetable even when it's metaphorical? Well, this of course comes from 20 questions or 20Q. And what this person is forgetting is that you're also allowed other and unknown. Metaphorical fruit is a reference to my book, which is also a reference to Genesis, which makes it metaphysical fruit, and if it's metaphysical, then by definition, it's unknown.
Wow. That was a very good answer to a very strange question. I'd just be like, I don't know. Why are you asking these weird questions? Okay, so who's more loony, the loon or the loon who publishes him?
Yes, I will admit, actually, I had this thought. I'm guessing that is my publisher asking that question. I
can't remember who asked that.
Well, I'm not meant to know anyway, but it's fun.
You're not.
Oh, no.
You're allowed to guess. I mean, come on.
To guess. I'm guessing.
I'm not going to be like, no, you're not allowed to even think. Don't engage your brain for those sort of questions.
I actually even thought that. I could not believe somebody would publish that book. I also can't believe I haven't been killed for it yet. It should definitely, as We Think on Ice so correctly said, it has to make it onto the Catholics' banned books list. But I know another writer, I think it was YesIAmJames, who said that's his lifelong ambition, is to publish. Never mind winning a literary award, never mind writing a bestseller, if something you write gets banned by the Catholic Church, you've made it.
Yeah, that's got to be, for any atheist who writes, that has got to be the number one goal. I mean, it would also be quite an accomplishment to be getting death threats from radical Muslims or something like that. But yeah, at least getting on the banned book list is a bit of a safer option.
Yes, definitely. But yes, I would be so pleased. I'm surprised by the total lack of negative attention over the book. But I honestly did think, oh my God, someone's crazy. But I always think that if I actually get a job or I get onto a course, my whole life it's like they accepted me. Tossers. You're mental. You don't know what you're doing.
Okay, so yeah, 3 questions in one here. Why should I read the book? Will my brain function after reading it? And if it still functions, why?
The book is sort of thought-provoking, I hope, but may also do your head in. And it's one of those books that is definitely saying something. It makes me think of the Douglas Adams line. One is left with, when they're reviewing the Vogue on poetry, one is left with an astounding, astonishing, clear insight into whatever it was the poem was about. And you know it's about something. You know it says something. It's trying to say a lot, but through an LX filter, which perhaps is what gives it its unusual quality. A couple of people have said, if nothing else, you will never have read anything like it. Perhaps that's the reason why. So, the first part of the question: why should you read this book? Why should you buy this book? It's certainly unusual, which isn't just my conceit. It seems to be what people are saying is that it's quite a crazy, unusual read. So there you are.
Okay. What are the biggest misconceptions about OCD?
People basically think that we're all germaphobes. And also, we tend, I would say, to be represented fairly negatively. I've even seen, and I'm not joking, a documentary, and I know that by the standards of a lot of documentaries, this isn't that bad, because nowadays you turn on the History Channel and it's about aliens for some reason. This is the History Channel, or am I still watching Doctor Who? What's going on?
Yeah, and Honey Boo Boo is now on, I think it's the History Channel as well.
God.
Yeah. It's the History Channel, or a channel which would be the last channel you expect to have Honey Boo Boo on in a perfect world.
Indeed, or an acceptable world. But what's more dangerous is when you're actually offensive. I have seen a documentary that was called The Mind of Adolf Hitler, and it was entirely Freudian and traced everything back to the theory that because Adolf Hitler's house that he grew up in, by any account, was unusually clean and tidy, therefore, of course, his mother had OCD, therefore, and Freud had 4 stages of early childhood development, one of which is potty training, the OCD mother, unproven, undiagnosed anyway, posthumously I think, diagnosed, messed up toilet training, because of course an OCD parent is going to be overzealous and therefore make the child feel dirty, which automatically, well, of course, what other reason could there be for someone to grow up and kill millions and millions of innocent people?
Well, yeah, the moustache must have done it.
The moustache must.
If not that, yeah.
If not that, so presumably then, Gaddafi, Mussolini, Stalin, Hussein, they all had obsessive-compulsive mothers. So obviously we must all be sterilised, because if I have a child, then it'll end up in a whole new Holocaust. So there you go.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm.
Moving on. Is it okay to torture a terrorist for information? Why or why not?
It depends how you're defining torture, because I would say that if you know for certain you can save lives, if there is a bomb that's about to kill people, and you really think the only way, and the clock is ticking, and you really think the only way to save those lives is to inflict a certain degree of, under controlled circumstances, a certain degree of temporary pain and temporary harm on someone, if that seems to be the only option to get the information to save those lives. But for the most part, I think that any kind of torture is bullshit.
Yeah, I agree with that. Probably more articulate than I would have put it as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So imagine you are out in the woods, you stumble upon 100 natives who have been captured by militants. The militants tell you that if you kill one native, they will let the others go, but if you don't, they will all die. Would you kill the native or not, and why?
Oh, fucking hell, I'm being asked ethical questions.
You are, yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you, James. If it's not him asking the questions, I wish it were him answering them. Fuck, I couldn't even take that question in. Can you repeat it?
Okay, so you're out in the woods, stumble upon 100 natives who've been captured by militants. The militants tell you that if you kill one native, they let the others go, but if you don't, they all die. Would you kill the native?
So we're going, but am I going to say that you sacrificed the lifeboat to save the ship?
Yeah, directly involved in the killing of one person to save 100. But they all die, including the one which you would have killed anyway otherwise.
Well, then
but you're not directly killing.
So pragmatically, you're taking on the burden of living with being a murderer. But then, well, alright, cynical as it sounds, I would actually say that you are not a murderer of one, you are a minus murderer of 99. And I'll quote Spock and say, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. So I'd even say it's more heroic to take on the burden of the guilt. You, James, would say it doesn't alter the fact that you're still a murderer, and I'll accept that, but accepting that is actually part of and that is the burden of the leaders live with that. You know, I was watching Frost Nixon the other night, and I don't entirely condemn Nixon, because there's one part where he defends himself over Cambodia, where basically you'd be criticised for going in, you'd be criticised for not going in, you'd be criticised for going in as early as you did, you'd be criticising in for going in as late as you did, and ultimately, as much as we envy power, the truth is when it's life or death, power sucks.
Yeah. Fair enough. Final ethical question. Imagine yourself in a Nazi concentration camp. Oh, this is off to a great start. Someone in your bunker has come across a list of the next people to be exterminated. You have the opportunity to replace a healthy 10-year-old boy on the list with your favourite uncle who is aged and feeble. Your choice is given to you to decide. Do you make the switch?
Sorry, once again, that was too much to take in. Can you repeat it?
Okay. You're in a Nazi concentration camp. Someone in your bunker has come across a list of the next people to be executed, and you have the opportunity to replace a healthy 10-year-old boy on the list with your favourite uncle who is aged and feeble. Given the choice, would you make the switch?
Do I get to ask the uncle if he agrees to this?
That would be my question to that, but they haven't said, so...
Oh, fucking hell. You are picking and choosing who gets to live and who gets to die, which is wrong in the situation, though. Again, I would be pragmatic. I would do it, but I would hope that I would have the opportunity to ask and clear it with the decrepit old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I knew my uncle wanted, if I was in the situation, if I knew my uncle was wanted to die, then
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, if I didn't, then no.
Yeah.
I don't know. There is one more semi-ethical question. What would you say is the most realistic and pragmatic change you can think can make society better?
The word pragmatic's in there.
Yeah, realistic and pragmatic.
Realistic and pragmatic. Oh, damn, it's got to be realistic. Shit, that's not very me. Because I would have actually said the total erasure of the Vatican, the Pope, Catholicism from the world, but unfortunately that's very unrealistic. What could we actually do? Damn. If I had more time, I could probably think of something. Damn it. This is the sort of thing I think about, but my mind has just gone blank now. To make the world better, it's, well, people who have the money could get condoms and vaccinations and mosquito nets to everybody in the motherfucking world. Which is realistic.
Pretty good answer.
We could do that, yeah. Yeah.
What did Haldeman tell you during the 18.5-minute gap?
I don't know, because the silence were in the room using post-hypnotic suggestion. So those entire 18.5 minutes in the Oval Office were actually erased, and that's the truth of what happens. The silence did it.
Okay. Regarding your book, what in the name of Satan could have possibly inspired you to create something so twisted and bizarre? In other words, what's made you want to write it like this instead of writing it as a normal novel? Was it bad acid or something? Or were you trying to freak people out?
As I say, was it bad acid? There was an influence of a combination of mescaline and alcohol, and mescaline, of course, is it's made from cactuses, so but it does cause hallucinations and things. It's it sort of, and it's considered a creative drug, I think, although I took it in the context of a nightclub. My friends were like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" No, nothing's wrong. It's just I'm not dancing or anything, but the environment is stimulating me, and we've got because I sometimes have even taken, I know it sounds really sad, I've taken a notepad to clubs before now, to write things down, and I've observed how people's behaviour seems when you're on whatever the fuck you've been given. So there is a drugs influence, there's a dreams influence. What inspired me to write it the way I did it naturally, things like how paintings tell you what they are or what they should be, so do books. And I dare say the book to some extent reflected my state of mind at the time. Or I would say that I must have been quite agitated by the world, quite agitated by religion, and kind of some things you have to write. It sounds pretentious, but it's true. So and also the urge to try and get into the character, because actually, the devil's been mentioned, so this is already a spoiler-heavy interview. Writing it almost like it is the gospel according to the devil. Almost, the devil's finally getting his say. And part of the original. That's it. Yes, the original concept on paper was, if we believe in freedom of speech, and the devil sees this and turns up and says, "Well, you have to include my gospel. Then you can't say no." And I knew some people would say, "Oh, so you're against freedom of speech then, or you're a Satanist." When no, the point is you either believe in freedom of speech or you don't. And so are you, supposing we're to entertain, A, that the Judeo-Christian / Muslim mythology is correct in some way, that concept of the universe is correct in some way, and B, that there is a literal Satan character, which obviously you and I don't actually believe, but if they did, you would have to say, if the devil shows up, no, you've got to put my gospel in the Bible as well. you've got to agree, or you don't believe in freedom of speech. And actually, we do extend freedom of speech to radical Muslims, to neo-Nazis, to people who believe horrible things, including that it's okay to kill innocent people. And that's part of the principle that you just have to live with. You either accept it. And that was the concept ran away with itself, and it became about so much else. But now I think about it, yes, I'm glad to have been reminded of that. So there was an intelligence behind it, but there were also shitloads of drugs.
Excellent. Okay. Well, that's all the questions we have time for. And until next time, comment, rate, subscribe, and I'll see you soon.
That was fun. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye.